First of all, thanks everybody who has joined, and thanks for giving us this part of your time to share with you what we believe is a very good material about SD-WAN, and especially in these times that we are living. And as you can see, and you see in the invite, this is about the SD-WAN technology, but it's dedicated, is aimed at trying to convey to you in a very short period of time how SD-WAN can help you navigate in this time of crisis. So we have opened the Q&A on this webinar tool. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. I will do my best to try to answer those questions during the presentation. If I believe it will take too long to explain at a time, I may defer that to the Q&A that we will have anyway at the end of the presentation. So let's start. Very briefly, probably you saw this already in the invitation, but my name is Dante Passalacqua. I'm the VP of Technology for Convergia for the past 4 years, and I have an extensive career in IT and telecom, spanning more than 30 years. And in that time, I would like to say that I have become a technology evangelizer, and I'm passionate about technology. So I'm going to share with you my take on what is SD-WAN and what's happening right now. The agenda for today is, first of all, understand what are the challenges that we're facing in telecom in this time of crisis that we all know that we're in right now. And then we will go briefly over how SD-WAN can help you address these challenges, and why, in my opinion, SD-WAN is one of the best network tools that you can use right now. First of all, let's understand the challenges. And I guess the first one is pretty obvious. But let's just start with some numbers that will help us at least get an idea of what is going on right now. We all know that what's going on with the world. Most countries, the US included, many. Yesterday, I read that about 96% of the US population is under mandatory or under recommendation of stay at home, shelter at home. So basically, that means that in order to try to keep the economy going, most companies are trying and scrambling to do whatever they can to send people to work from home. So the US is not a stranger of teleworking. It's probably one of the countries that was, I would dare to say, more prepared, because we have been doing teleworking for many years, actually decades. But nobody, and I mean nobody, could have foreseen such an increase in a short period of time. To the left, you will see some studies regarding this from companies that have been studying teleworking for the past 10 years. And as of 2018, they were saying, okay, about 3.6% of the workforce in the US, like 5 million people, were already working remotely. And but how many could actually work remotely because of the nature of what they do? And it's about like more than 10 times. It's like almost 14 times more, like 56%. There's no statistics about what's going on in terms of how big is the spike, how many times do we have, but we have some sources, and at least one of them is citing 10% increase in teleworking, meaning that we are 1,000% more doing more teleworking right now than we were before the crisis started in the US. Obviously, that means that everybody needs more bandwidth. We are in a telecom company, and we have seen a huge spike, and as soon as the crisis started, our emails, mailboxes, and our phones were flooded with the requests for desperate requests, I will dare to say, from people saying, I need more bandwidth, I need it now. And there are a couple of ways that you can go around to increase more bandwidth. Obviously, you can call your existing provider and say, okay, please increase my bandwidth. And if you are lucky enough, maybe they can do what is called a soft increase, meaning they don't need to install anything extra. and they just update your upgrade your bandwidth via software. But in many cases, that's not the case. So also very important is that as people scramble and companies scramble to send all their collaborators to work from home, they are seeing like 11 times more trouble tickets related to IT, because for many users, this is the first time that they are trying to work remotely. So this is straining all sorts of resources. A lot of the IT help desk are trying to support users remotely, but they are facing a big constraint, the bandwidth. Bandwidth is not enough for this situation. As I said at the beginning, a few minutes ago, nobody could have foreseen such a spike. Teleworking demands a lot of bandwidth, and this is sustained bandwidth that you need to connect everybody that is working from home to your headquarters. In a informal conversation a few days ago, somebody asked me, okay, but why is this? Why is everybody doing VPNs? Why in the era that we are living, that everything is supposed to be on the cloud? Isn't it true that most people should be connecting to the cloud instead of connecting to the headquarters of the company? And if that's the case, why there's this shortage of bandwidth at the headquarters? And that's a very good question, so I decided to include it in this presentation. But before that, before we move to QoS, just to explain what's going on with the cloud. The cloud is, everybody is adopting cloud to some point, but very good statistics and studies show that till this day, in 2020, about 55% of the companies are only partially on the cloud, meaning there are almost no companies that they have 100% of their applications, of their infrastructure moved to the cloud. Most companies, even the biggest ones, the Fortune 500 ones, they are hybrid, meaning what? That they have some applications on the cloud. For example, they could have your email, the Office 365, maybe some basic applications, but applications are very sensitive to latency on they were developed in-house. They are hard to migrate to the cloud. So till this day, in 2020, there's no company that can say I have 100% of my applications on the cloud, which in turn means that they, for supporting their remote workers, they need to give them access to the headquarters where most of the applications, the critical applications, are still located. Second challenge that everybody's facing right now is QoS. QoS is a buzzword that we have been using for decades, and it stands for quality of service, meaning that there's some sort of prioritization for the traffic that goes from point A to point B. In this case, we need QoS urgently, and it's a must. It's essential. Why? Because if you have you have a lot of users competing and a lot of competing applications, and many of those applications are really bandwidth hungry, you are going to run into troubles. The equation that you see to the left means that if you increase the usage and you have on top of that bandwidth constraints, because the bandwidth is not unlimited, unfortunately, and you lack real QoS, the result is very bad, which is basically unusable services. We are seeing complaints about that, and you can, if you just do a super quick search in Google, you will see a lot of results about people complaining about the quality of service, like for example, video conference problems, screen sharing and collaboration is not working as they were expecting it to be. The reason is easy. This spike, as I said, nobody could have anticipated this. And everybody is trying to share limited resources. So what do you do in those cases? You have to apply QoS. You have to prioritize. You have to say, okay, email is not that urgent. Email can be delayed for a few seconds, maybe in a couple of minutes. Is not that bad. But you cannot delay, for example, video conference. You cannot delay screen sharing. If you have an IT guy trying to resolve a problem for a remote teleworker, it's imperative that he's able to see in real time what's going on at the user screen. Otherwise, he cannot provide assistance. So nowadays, the lack of QoS could lead to very easily to frustration and lower productivity. If you try to convince people that are for the first time working remotely, and they all of a sudden start to seeing that, okay, the video conference doesn't work. When I try to make a call, and it gets, the volume fades out, or I'm just listening bits and bytes of the conversation. I'm losing the conversation. All that sorts of issues that are directly related to a saturation and the lack of bandwidth and QoS, people will start immediately losing confidence in working remotely, and that is really bad for these times. The other concept is that everybody is, and obviously this is self-explanatory. Everybody knows that we are brewing an unprecedented economical crisis. Nobody knows how big it's going to be, but everybody's hoping and everybody's aiming that we will bounce back from this faster than previous crisis. And one of the reasons is that people know this is coming, that it's unavoidable. The unemployment rate is through the roof, and everybody's scrambling to cut costs so companies can bounce back and to some degree of normality faster. And at the forefront of those cutting cost efforts is IT and telecom. That's mandatory, and I can tell you, as Convergia being a telecom company, we are seeing every day we receive formal communication from our clients, all sorts of clients in small business, all the way to Fortune 500 corporation, asking for cost reductions, asking us to help them devise new ideas, new ways to cut their costs in IT and telecom. So this is a must. This is mandatory. Everybody's doing it. It's an imperative that everybody's trying to follow. So this is going to cause a few things. Like one, for example, is many companies were very reluctant to let go of legacy technologies, like, for example, MPLS. MPLS has been around for like 25 years, and it's super solid, and nobody wants to touch it because it just works. But unfortunately, it's very expensive. So crises like this will force people and IT leaders, CTOs, to reevaluate, CIOs, CTOs, even CEOs, CFOs to reevaluate, and will be forced to look for alternatives. Regarding one critical issue, and you may have been seeing this on the news in the past 10 days or so, there are a lot of security risks. Working from home is a must. Nobody doubts that. We have no alternative now. We have to do it. But unfortunately, in rushing to do it, we are overlooking, relaxing, and other security policies that are in place for a reason. And you can see, I found this. I've been involved in information security for almost 3 decades right now, so I keep myself informed, and I'm subscribed to a lot of alerts. I received this alert just last week, and this is from the FBI IC3. IC3 stands for Internet Crime Complaint Center, so it's a very reliable source of information. And you see the quote there: cyber actors take advantage of COVID-19 pandemic to exploit increased use of virtual environments. Elaborating a little bit, the full alert, you can look at it. If you take the number and you just Google it, you will find the full alert. But I just struck what I believe is more relevant to what we're discussing here. The emphasis is mine, and I quote: malicious cyber actors are looking for ways to exploit telework software vulnerabilities in order to obtain sensitive information, eavesdrop on conference call, virtual meetings, or conduct other malicious activities. Maybe you have heard about Zoom bombing. This is something that is happening as we speak, and has exploded last week. People were using a lot of Zoom, very well-known video conference software solution, that because they took a very interesting action in order to help people and actually to promote, obviously, the product. they give free Zoom for 40 minutes to everybody. So everybody was using Zoom all the time. The problem was that there were a few security issues that they haven't addressed properly, and resulting in people getting intrusion during a video conference. So people could actually hear everything that you were discussing, record it without your knowledge, even intruding and sharing distasteful or even harassing information and all kinds of sorts of malicious behavior. So this is something that is not to be taken lightly. This is happening. We need to be able to enable people to work remotely, but at the same time, as much as possible, we cannot afford to forgo completely of security. Otherwise, we will face things like it's happening with the Zoom. So moving on, and please, if anybody has any question, you can already ask them. Janisha, if you can please open the questions, the Q&A. I see it's closed. If you can hear me, please open the Q&A so everybody can ask questions. So we move to the second session, the second part of this session, which is how can SD-WAN help us address the challenges? Now that we understand that we are facing unique challenges, we need more bandwidth super fast. We need to do better QoS to allow for a bandwidth hungry application like video conference and screen sharing to work in a way that people can actually use it. And also the security that I just mentioned. So how can SD-WAN help us? Let's dive into that. But for that, first, we need to understand what SD-WAN is. And I know that most people, probably everybody on this call, has already heard about SD-WAN, and probably you already have a pretty good idea. So what I'm going to do is just try to illustrate this as fast as it can. This concept that you see here, they all form part of one way or another of SD-WAN. One acceleration, caching, compression, VPNs, encryption, failover, load balancing, smart routing, smart management, reporting, and so on. But I strongly believe the saying that goes like a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's try to explain this with a picture. Before SD-WAN, what you're seeing on the left of this slide and the PowerPoint presentation is that let's call it the ideal scenario for a medium-sized to a large corporation. This is what everybody involved in networking, your CTO, your CIO, the network administrator of your company will love to have. Everybody will love to have all of what you're seeing right now. A firewall, obviously, to protect you, and that's your basic security. The routers to communicate with remotely. A VPN concentrator, which is critical nowadays because that's the device that is allowing people to connect remotely and securely to the internal network. Intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, web filtering, WAN acceleration, proxies, network management system, and so on. So this is basically your wish list all fulfilled. Everybody will love to have this. In reality, our experience shows that almost no company has everything that you are seeing here depicted. Why? Because first of all, this comes with a high complexity. You have to work with a lot of different providers. For example, your firewall may be, I don't know, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Fortinet. The routers are probably Cisco. The VPN concentrator could be a FortiGate. The IDS IPS probably could be a Checkpoint, FortiGate, Palo Alto 2. Web filtering most likely will be WebSense, nowadays called ForcePoint. And one accelerator probably will be Riverbed, and a proxy will be F5. So you see, there's a bunch of different providers, each one with different configurations. That means a longer deployment time, prohibiting cost because a solution like this is really expensive. And on top of that, you have to spend a lot of time and effort to keep this updated, and so the maintenance is very high. What's the alternative? Nowadays, we have this. Everything that you see on the left, you can get on the right with just one single device, an SD-WAN appliance. That will give you reduced complexity, reduced deployment time, reduces cost, the TCO, the total cost of ownership will be reduced, and obviously you will have a lower maintenance. So that's in a nutshell SD-WAN. It's the convergence of a lot of technologies that we have seen for the past decades in one single coherent appliance that will work like that. I'm seeing a few questions here, and one says, what is a cloud management SD-WAN? Okay, that regards to the flavors of SD-WAN. I will, please allow me to address that at the end of the presentation in the Q&A section. It will take me a few minutes to distinguish, but let's say for now, to answer that question, that we have three flavors of SD-WAN. One is 100% on-premise, the other is 100% cloud, and we have kind of a hybrid. I will elaborate a little bit on that at the end of the presentation in the Q&A section. The other question says, I have 5 convenience stores with POS, both for P. I want to limit web browsing access, no social media. Perfect. Okay, that's a given. That's actually out of the box in our solution. Many SD-WAN solutions don't include it. That's web filtering, and we do have that. I will elaborate a little bit on the coming slides, but to answer your question, yes, you can immediately out of the box limit social media, and you can limit all kinds of traffic through web filtering. Another question, how does Convergia SD-WAN compare to other supplies providers that offer this as the main product? Very good question. A full comparison will take some time. I have a slide I will use at the end of the presentation, so bear with me, and I will elaborate at the end of the presentation on a comparison about that. But let me say this. Our solution is, I will say, one of the most all-encompassing solutions that I've seen on the market. And I'm confident to say this because me and my team, we spent more than 18 months researching 25 different providers, all the brands that you have probably heard in the market, the Cisco's, Meraki's, Viptelas, Fortinet's, Riverbeds, obviously VeloCloud, Talari, Silver Peak, and you name it. I had a list of more than 25 different providers. We bought equipment, we work closely with them, we build labs, and we, after 18 months of testing, we decided for a solution. That is one that we have that is based on a provider that is called PadPipe, which is by Gartner, not by Convergia or Dante Passalacqua, by Gartner. Gartner recognizes PadPipe as the inventor of SD-WAN. Another question says, how cost competitive is Convergia SD-WAN product? I will say it's very, very competitive, and in the sense that, first of all, our licensing scheme is very flexible. It's kind of like the cloud. You pay for what you use, and you only pay for the bandwidth that you currently use. So you can have a box that could support a full gigabit of traffic, but you are only using 100 megs, then we will charge you just for a license of 100 megs. So it's very competitive, and we can go into more detail after the end of the presentation. So I think this will answer a few of the questions that I'm seeing. Let's just start with this phrase that I would like to use. Not everything that shines is SD-WAN, and the reason I use this is because everybody is labeling the products as SD-WAN, and obviously it's understandable because it's such a buzzword in the last 3 or 4 years. So, and everybody is using the word SD-WAN. So what's the complexity with this? First of all, it's complex to distinguish what is SD-WAN and what is not SD-WAN. The reason is because we lack a formal standard. There's no standard. Just last year, to give a complete and update figure, just last year, about in July of 2019, the MEF, which stands for the Metro Ethernet Forum, which congregates a lot of providers, manufacturers of equipment, and so on, they gathered to define the first SD-WAN standard. We don't have an RFC. The IEEE has not defined what SD-WAN is. So the MEF step in and say we are going to define it. So far we have a draft, but nobody has formally adopted. It's not widespread. So we are still having to resort to the first white paper that was done for SD-WAN, which was by Gartner. Gartner doesn't need any introduction. It's a worldwide, well-known, super recognized brand. They investigated this emerging technology SD-WAN, and they came up with 4 criteria that an SD-WAN solution must have if they want to use the SD-WAN name, according to, again, Gartner. What you see here is those four concepts. I took the liberty of splitting the last one in 2 because, to my understanding, it was easy to explain. But if you get your hands on the original paper, you will see it like 4 concepts, not 5. The last 2 are just 1 in the original paper. So it's hybrid WAN, dynamic path selection, simple centralized management, and strong security, and add-on support like firewalls and so on. So let's dive into this super quick. Hybrid WAN, and why is it so important? Okay, the hybrid WAN means that if you are going to call your solution an SD-WAN, it has to be able to receive any kind of connection. If you are going to call your solution SD-WAN, but it can only handle internet, and on top of that, it can only handle certain kinds of internet, for example, that they don't have too much variance between the latency, that is not a full SD-WAN solution. Again, not said by Convergia or Dante Passalacqua, it's said by Gartner. And the reason why SD-WAN is important is because, let me use the pointer here. So if you see here, we have a bunch of different technologies, and it's important to be able to connect all of them. Probably some people may be thinking, okay, why do you need satellite? Unfortunately, even in North America, in parts of Canada, and parts of even in the US, satellite is still the only means of communication. There's big chunks of the North America that are not covered by dedicated fiber and high-speed fiber. So it's important that the solution is all-encompassing. If you see here, you will notice that this is a way to graphically show that obviously a dedicated fiber is way better than a satellite link because of concepts like latency, jitter, packet loss, and so on. So in summary, if you have a solution that calls itself SD-WAN but cannot aggregate, balance, and fail over to different kind of links that have a huge variation of latency. For example, what's the typical latency in dedicated fiber? It could be as low as 4 milliseconds, probably 6 to 8 milliseconds at the most. And but when you go to satellite, that you see here in red, you have a minimum of 650 milliseconds. So if the algorithms inside your SD-WAN solution are not able to properly balance 2 links that behave completely different between 4 milliseconds to 650 milliseconds, then your solution, again, according to Gartner, is not a full SD-WAN solution. Many solutions out there, they can only do internet. They do not support MPLS. They do not support layer 2 systems. They do not support satellite links or links that have a very strong, very high latency or very high packet loss. The second one is the dynamic path selection, and this is very simple actually, and it's always finding the best path to go from point A to point B. You know, in elementary school, we all learned that the shortest path between 2 points was the straight line, like this. But in network theory, we know everybody that understands a bit of network theory, they know that's not necessarily true. In any given time, as an extra jump could get you to point B faster, or even a triple jump. Why? Because these links are dynamic, and at any given point in time, they could be degraded, they could be saturated, they could be down. So the capacity to self-adapt and always find the best possible route for each packet or each session, that is called dynamic path selection. And if a solution, again, wants to be called a full SD-WAN solution, has to have this. Okay. Why is this important? Because this is more effective in SD-WAN solution, and our solution is even more effective than the traditional dynamic routing, like, for example, if you are familiar with routing, OSPF or BGP. The reason is because this doesn't use ICMP. Okay, and explaining how we do it without using ICMP will take probably a whole session, and so I'm not going to go into much detail about that, but suffice to say, I like to call this ways for your data. The same way that we use ways to get us through the quickest and fastest route from point A to point B, this is exactly what the full SD-WAN solution, especially the one that Convergia carries, will do for your data. Your data will reach from point A to point B as fast as possible at any given time. Third concept, very important too, is called zero-touch provisioning, meaning that this should be something that is easy to deploy. Obviously, the zero-touch is a marketing concept. It's not something that we still need to do some basic configuration, but it's super basic. So whenever you want to do this, you just need to give one of the nodes that you want to connect to the network two pieces of information. One is a private secure key that is pre-shared only with the orchestrator, which is the central intelligence of the SD-WAN. And the second piece of information is what's the IP address that this new node will use to reach the orchestrator. So once you have that, what happens is the node will authenticate itself with the orchestrator, and if the authentication succeeds, the orchestrator will welcome the node to the network and will push some policies. There are many policies. In this case, I'm illustrating just one case, which is the VPN policies, the Virtual Private Network policies, and will force the node to establish secure tunnels with all the rest of the network. This happens automatically and happens super fast. So just to give you an idea, when we deploy like an SD-WAN of 50 nodes, once you have all the nodes connected, energized, power up, booted up, and connected to at least one or more circuits, you can have a full mesh network in under 5 minutes. Why is this so important? And the reason for this is, and again, this is network theory, but if you care to count how many links you need to interconnect a full mesh network, you will see that just to connect 6 nodes, you have 15 links. Okay, and if this increases, the increase is not linear; it's geometrical. So it grows like this. This is the formula. It's n times n minus 1 divided by 2 times the numbers of circuits. So if I were to add a 7th node, it will not be 16 links. It will be 21, and so on. So this is some simple calculation to show why this is so complex and why it's very important to have zero-touch provisioning. Because if you have a very small network, like only 20 nodes, and you have 2 circuits per node, one main circuit and one redundant, then you have 380 tunnels. That's the mathematics of it. So it's very complicated, and this is the main reason why most people, most companies, they don't have active circuits. They usually have active-passive, meaning that one link is active, and when something goes down, the other one needs to be manually brought up. In this configuration, for having a full SD-WAN, you have to have all active, all tunnels, all full mesh. This will reduce deployment time, eliminate human error, and increase security. Okay, so about centralized management, this again is you have the orchestrator sitting in the middle of the solution, and the orchestrator will be able to push policies, allow you remote login, meaning remote management with the SSO, which stands for single sign-on, meaning that you only need to have one password. And with one password, you can securely control and log into any node of the network. You don't need to remember a lot of passwords, or you don't need to put the same password in every node, because that will be a huge security risk. Okay, and on top of that, you have data that is being collected, events, statistics, and we can export all of those events to any network management console. We support NetFlow, the Cisco compatible SNP, which is universal, and also Syslog, which is universal too. So that's in a nutshell what you should look for in SD-WAN, and then you will see that if you dive into the technical details of many solutions out there, like we did for, like I said, for 18 months, you will find that many of those solutions are in the market, they don't comply with all the requirements to be called a full SD-WAN solution according to Gartner. Let's go over the benefits of SD-WAN. So first of all, you have improved customer experience. Why? Because you can aggregate multiple links and you can do load balancing and failover. This translates to your customers being receiving more uptime. So if something goes wrong with the link, because your links are active-active and nor active-passive, the failover will be immediately, and your users will not, your customers will not experience any downtime. This is related to increased network reliability. The sub-second failover, which is a patented feature that we have in our solution, will give you the ability to persist your sessions even if a link fails. When a link fails, it will automatically migrate the traffic to the other one in under 200 milliseconds. Enhanced network visibility. Okay, so they will give you a smart management integration with the existing network management system and so on. A lot of reports, alerts, and statistics out of the box. Higher enhanced security through the use of firewall, web filtering, intrusion detection, prevention, and multi-path security. You can lower your cost or your cost of your clients, and because you can use an aggregation of cheaper links, or you can replace or complement more expensive technology, like, for example, MPLS. Reduce deployment time, I already explained that through zero-touch deployment. And also, very big for large corporations, your BCP, your business continuity plan, or your disaster recovery, you can enhance those with site-to-site replication using the technology that our SD-WAN solution has. So, very briefly, again, link aggregation, you can see it in a graphic. You can aggregate many links. It doesn't matter if it's a dedicated fiber and ADSL, and you will get a theoretical link that it will be the sum of all the individual physical links. This allows you to have a redundancy to aggregate links. In this time of crisis, for example, let's say that you have this dedicated fiber only, and the company's struggling because of a bottleneck on the fiber. You can call your provider, and hopefully they will be able to increase this bandwidth. But if they cannot, you can still get an ADSL. And nowadays, you still can get an ADSL installed in 3 to 5 days, business days. And you can get 1, 2 of those and aggregate them, and they will behave like as a single one. And on top of that, they will provide you failover. So you can relieve your bandwidth constraint very fast by using SD-WAN. This is a critical concept for this presentation, and especially in SD-WAN. As you saw, the title of the presentation was how to use SD-WAN in that time of crisis. This is one key concept. You can do this today. You can offer to your clients, or use SD-WAN, put just one SD-WAN box in front of whatever you have right now, your firewalls or whatever, you keep that, and the SD-WAN box will aggregate links, and we can add 1, 2, 3. We have cases that they are aggregating as many as 16 broadband links, and they are performing way better. Obviously, the aggregation is performing way better than even the big, very expensive dedicated fiber pipe. The WAN acceleration also is very important because it will allow you to have selective encryption and selective compression, which means that you don't have to encrypt what is already encrypted. The box is smart enough to know that. And also, it will not try to compress whatever is already compressed. For example, this video, any video conference is already compressed. It's highly compressed. So there's no point in trying to compress that. Our SD-WAN solution is smart enough to analyze the payload, meaning that whatever is being transported through the network, and decide if it has to do something or not. So in that regard, it accelerates the WAN, and it will save resources. I mentioned that QoS was critical now more than ever, because you have to be sure that your key application, like for example collaboration right now, screen sharing like I'm doing right now. If I'm doing a screen sharing and you don't see my updates, it wouldn't be any good. So if I update the slide and you don't see that refresh on your side, means that you are suffering from probably from a saturation of bandwidth. And if you have good QoS, the application will be prioritized. Any screen sharing, and then it can be accelerated automatically. It's important to know that most QoS, when you hear QoS, is mostly referring to layer 2, meaning, and this gets technical, this is the transport layer. We are talking about layer 7 QoS, which is basically the application layer. In other words, you don't need to put a flag on a packet to say, okay, please prioritize this. It will happen automatically because the box, our SD-WAN solution, is able to determine that the application needs QoS, and it will apply it automatically. So the multi-pack security is a very key concept. It's a one-of-a-kind patented technology. This is in a time of security concerns, like I just mentioned. Security is key. Everybody's concerned about security because companies are not able to control the environments where their applications are running. They don't control your home. They don't control the PC that you're using from your home. So that's a risk, a security risk. How can you mitigate that? Using multi-path IPsec security. This is basically a very old idea. And this was used by many, in times of war. If you wanted to protect some super secret communication from going from point A to point B, you didn't send it in just one piece. You broke it into many different pieces and you send it to different routes at different times. So it will be very hard for anybody to actually intercept it. And if they manage to intercept a piece, that's it. It's basically a piece. It will not give them the full information. This is called MPSec. Again, it's a patented technology, and it works automatically when you enable it. So it will split the data that you want to send in random packets, and it will force those packets to take different routes at different times, and it will only reassemble the whole data at the destination point. So even if a hacker had managed to tap into one of your tunnels, which is encrypted, but let's say that they do manage to do a brute force attack and decrypt the tunnel, it will serve them no good because that's only a fraction of the data. So this is the highest security level that you can achieve, and this is why our security complies with FIPS 140, which stands for Federal Information Protection Standard, and that's what you need to sell to the FBI, to the Department of Security, Department of Homeland Security, or the Department of Defense. So, summarizing the key takeaways, I hope that you can get from this presentation is, first of all, through the use of SD-WAN, you can increase bandwidth super fast and very easily by the means of aggregating links. You can enhance your user experience by applying layer 7 QoS. You can reduce cost significantly by replacing existing expensive links or with multiple cheaper ones, or you can aggregate bandwidth the same way. Or you can, if you want to take this one step further, you can replace whole MPLS, very expensive networks, with a cheaper SD-WAN solution that actually can do everything that an MPLS does. And on top of that, you can do all of this without sacrificing security, because you can enforce security policies and secure your teleworking environment through the use of SD-WAN. So what you get out of the box with our SD-WAN solution, you get link aggregation, you get sub-second failover with session persistence, you get a full firewall, you get one acceleration, layer 7 QoS, web filtering, IDS, IPS, orchestration, load balancing, enhanced security, high availability, and so on. In summary, what we can offer you today as best of breed SD-WAN solution, a Pan-American presence with local supports in many countries from Canada all the way to Argentina and Chile, local stock in many countries, support by the people for the people, meaning that we don't believe in having our clients stand on a queue on an IVR for 40 minutes an hour until they can talk to a real human. Our guarantee is that if you call us, you will get somebody that knows your account in under 2 minutes. 20 years plus of experience, fast deployment, and most important, we have demos and proofs of concepts available immediately. So if you want to help your customers, if you want to prove this, we can help you today. Just please call your account representative or give us a call, and we will be able to help. So that concludes the presentation. I can go into more detail if anybody feels that that I should explain into more detail any concept. If you have any question, please feel free. The Q&A is still open. If you want me to explain or go into more details, I can do that. In the meantime, let me pause this presentation and I will stop sharing my screen for a second. Okay, I'm back. I'm sharing my screen right now, and to answer one of the questions that was posted on the Q&A, which reads, how does Convergia SD-WAN compare to other supply providers that offer this as the main product? And here you have we use this mostly internal, but I'm going to share it with you. This is a partial. This is a fraction, an excerpt of the analysis that we conducted, the result of the analysis that we conducted over 18 months. So what you see on the screen is a comparison between our solution powered by FatPipe and 3 of the leading full SD-WAN solutions on the market. And when I say full SD-WAN, I'm referring to the part that I just explained, that unfortunately not everything that is advertised as SD-WAN is a real SD-WAN. And you can see many of the functions and features are simply not present, or they need extra software or third-party solutions to augment their solution. For example, doesn't include a firewall. You have to get that from a third-party provider. Obviously, they have alliance, and you can mix and match. Nobody's saying the contrary, but the benefit of our solution is that it's all inclusive in one single box, one coherent solution. And this analysis continues in this page, and you can see that there are a lot of criteria. This gets very, very technical, and we will need a completely dedicated 1-hour session just to explain these concepts. But suffice to say that if you trust us, we have done this. Like I said, in 18 months analysis and using real equipment, real life situation and labs, and we come out with this result that I'm sharing with you right now. So I don't know if there's any other questions. And there was one about what is cloud management is the one, and I will using the minutes that we have, I will try to address that one. Just give me a second. So regarding that question, there are 3 main flavors of SD-WAN. This is also important to understand. That there's the flavor that is called 100% on-premise, which means that there is no single point of failure. There's no central location that if that goes down, your whole network will go down. In these cases, all the intelligence resides on the edge and the edge point devices. These are smarter devices that you install at the client location, so you can you depend on this, and there's no single point of failure here. Does this mean that there's no orchestration, no centralized management? No, absolutely not. The only difference is the orchestration can run on any of the devices and any of the physical nodes. So any company is self-sustainable, doesn't need to depend on any provider. not even Convergia. We provide the solution, but even if Convergia suffers a failure, it doesn't necessarily affect our clients because they are completely independent. Okay. The other flavor that is very, it's very well known because of it's on the cloud, and there's obviously a very well-known solution, which is it works like this. You have to connect to the nearest, the closest POP, and to go from point A to point B, you have to go through the central point, and you exit the network to the destination. So that obviously it has advantage. In this central point, you can apply a lot of policies. You can offer what is called clean pipes and many other concepts, but it also has two main drawbacks. One, if this central point goes down, the whole network is affected. And many people can argue, okay, it's VMware, that's never going to happen. But I will always say this, in 30+ years of experience, I have learned one thing, and technology is never 100% secure, meaning that an SLA could be 99 point many nines, but even super secure infrastructure like Azure from Microsoft, AWS from Amazon have experienced outages. So it's not a matter if it can happen, it will happen. And at some point, if that happens, your whole network will go down. So that's something that to consider. Also, the second drawback from this is the increased latency. When you have this version of SD-WAN flavor, your latency is very low because the links are established directly between each client location. So you can have almost the same latency that you had before. Like, let's say that from A to B, you have a 4 millisecond latency because you are within the same city. You will keep basically the same latency. But if you go to this, and you have to go to a POP, and you are unfortunate enough that there's no POP in your city, you will have to go to a different state to reach the POP and then go back. So you can increase your latency 2, 3, 4, 10 times. It depends on where are you located. That's a drawback. And just for completion, to present the whole picture, there's a hybrid that is called middle mile optimization that is promoted by companies like Ariaka, K2, Mode, etc. And this is kind of a mix of the two models. There's the outer layer is like a non-cloud, and the inner layer is like behaves like kind of an on-premise. So it's a mixed environment. The main drawback of this is that it's way more expensive because the client is using, the provider is using dedicated links to provide this. So the amount of money that you pay per megabit is higher in this solution. Hopefully that will share some light in regarding the initial question of what is a cloud managed solution. A cloud managed solution will be this version, typically like VeloCloud or Adaptive Networks. And it has advantages and it has also drawbacks like anything else. Okay. I don't know if there's any additional questions. I will be glad to address those. Let's give it one more minute to see if anybody comes up with more questions. There are a few of them, and we'll try to address all of them briefly. A couple of them are really will take actually longer to explain in full detail, but I will do my best to summarize them. Okay, so let's start with the first one. What complaints do users have about network performance? Okay, that's this is something that is very relevant to the times that we are living right now. As I mentioned in the webinar, the spike that we are experiencing, the number of users working from home is straining the bandwidth that most companies have. And most of the complaints are related to underperformance or in a couple of services. One is voice, meaning that the voice doesn't sound good, or they're having issues using a collaboration tool that use voice. Like, for example, in this case, we're using Microsoft Teams, and there are people complaining about that the voice in Teams is not good. And it's actually not necessarily because an issue with Teams. it's because they are having issues or constraints in the bandwidth that they have available. So that's one, and obviously the problem doubles or triples when you are using more hungry applications, like, for example, video conference or screen sharing. For this event, we are sharing a screen, meaning that I'm sending a lot of data from my PC to the internet, and for that to work, I need to have a decent amount of bandwidth available. Otherwise, for example, if I didn't have enough bandwidth or my VPN was not sufficient in terms of bandwidth, everybody will see my screen not refreshing or refreshing very slow, which is obviously not what we need at these times. So I hope that addresses question number one. Let's see what else do we have. How is your solution architected for security? Okay. Our solution, and I'm going to switch to the presentation I used during the webinar. Just a second. Our solution is based on a provider which is by the name of PadPad, and it's a very strong solution, especially in terms of security. I'm just going to mention a few characteristics. First of all, this solution comes with a full suite of security solution products already incorporated. So out of the box, you get not only the SD-WAN, but you get a full feature firewall. It's a stateful firewall inspection, meaning that it can rival any major firewall out there. And any brand that you're aware of, you think any brand that you think immediately comes to your mind when you think in terms of firewall and security, our solution can rival them, can be compared head to head to those solutions. But it doesn't stop there. You get out of the box, and I'm going to show one slide from the webinar. Let me do this. So what you get out of the box with us, with our SD-WAN solution, you can see here you have a full feature stateful firewall, which does the what is called DPI, that stands for Deep Packet Inspection. So it goes very in depth into the packets and analyze them to determine if they should be allowed to enter or exit the network as needed. But you also get web filtering, which is also a big part of security, meaning that limiting what website, the web content your users can access is also very important, not only to save bandwidth, but also due to security concerns. And also intrusion detection and intrusion prevention are key to security. Usually in other solutions, you have to add another appliance, a third-party solution. In our solution, you have everything integrated in one single comprehensive solution. You just need to add the proper license for that, but the software is already there, already installed, and it works coherently between all the components of the solution. You also have, you see here that I specifically mentioned FIPS 140, which stands for Federal Information Protection Standard, and this is a certification that you have to get in order to sell to the most secure agencies of the U.S. government, for example, the FBI, the DOD, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and so on. Our solution, powered by PadPipe, does have FIPS 140-2 certification, so it's proven that it's very, very secure. And one of the reasons that they achieved this was because of this. Just give me a second, I will switch to the proper slide here. Okay, it's the technology is called MPSec, which stands for multi-path security, and it's basically it's a patented one of a kind technology, patented by PadPipe and by the manufacturer that we represent. And And this is done in a, what this allows you to do is very, very interesting in terms of security. It's the highest possible level of security that you can have. So basically what it does is, imagine that you want to go from point A, you want to transfer very critical top secret data from point A to point B. Then what happens, and let me see if I can illustrate it here using the pointer. And, so let's assume that we have some data here that we want to transfer from this, let's call this point A to point B. So the standard way that most, almost all SD-WAN solutions out there will do it, they will try to select the best route. And let's assume that at this moment, the best route is this one. So, and they will do 100% of the data transfer using this link, because at this particular moment, so it happens that it's the best available links in terms of the speed, bandwidth, latency, so on. So that's great for speed, but in this case, we're not focusing on speed, we're focusing on security. So instead of doing this, what our solution does is automatically it breaks the data in smaller packets. Let's say that it breaks this in, I don't know, 6 packets, and it will randomly select different routes to send the data. Let's say that this will do something like this, and then intentionally they are in disorder, they are randomized, so they are not transmitted in sequence. I'm transferring these parts randomly, and let's say the second part I will send part number 2, and I can select a completely different route that will go like this, and part number 4 could be something like this, and you get the idea. So the parts will arrive at different times in disorder, completely random, and then they will get assembled here. So you have the full data only at the destination. What this means in terms of security is that even if you manage to tap into, to intercept one of the links, and you manage to decrypt it, you won't be able to get the full data. You will only get a portion of it, and it's a random portion. You will, in most cases, that data that you obtain illegally, tapping into and decrypting a tunnel, an IPsec tunnel, will be completely useless. So it's basically impossible for any malicious party, let's say a hacker, to try to intercept all the tunnels at the same time and decrypt all the data at the same, break all the encryption keys and decrypt all the data just to reassemble this. So this is one of the reasons why, in terms of security, our solution is very, very robust. Okay. Let me see what's the next question. So how is performance and reliability for SAS, which stands for Software as a Service, and is public cloud services traffic assured? Okay, this is a two-part question, and this will take some time to explain, but I will try to get to the most important part, in my opinion, about this. So in terms of performance and reliability for SAS, yeah, let's expand the concept. SAS is using applications on the cloud. So basically, it's like, for example, let's imagine that you're using, I don't know, Salesforce, and to use Salesforce or any kind of software that you use, it's on the cloud. So the performance and the reliability depends on how secure, how fault tolerant are your links. And for that, SD-WAN is the perfect solution. And the way to do it, and I'm going to go back to the image here, one of the explanations. Just a second. Okay. So I'm going to use the same image, and the idea is like this. Let's say that here is the cloud, and within this cloud provider, we have a provider that is giving us the SAS, the software as a service. Doesn't matter what kind of application it's. So all these links that we are seeing is actually their internet. So let's assume that we are connected like this. And one of the key ways to do this, and you can do it with services. For example, we have our solution comes already ready to deploy on Azure, on AWS, and similar clouds. So any software as a service that is running on this very well-known platform like Azure or AWS, you can have a virtual instance. Let me change the color just for clarity. So in here, as part of your your cloud deployment or part of your SAS solution, you can ask your provider. Many providers already do this. They can give you a virtual SD-WAN device. So it's not a physical box like this. That is basically the same concept. It's the same software running on a virtual machine, on a VM, and it will aggregate all your traffic coming through multiple links from all of your location. So in terms of performance, this will give you an added bandwidth, meaning let's say that this is 100 megabits bandwidth, this is a 200 megabits link, and a 300 megabits. So in total, with SD-WAN, you can have this behave as if they were one single link, like in this case will be the equivalent of 600 megabits. So in terms of performance, you will have much better performance by using SD-WAN and our solution to connect to the cloud to an SAS service. And in terms of reliability, it's even better, because what happens is that you have automatic failover. And the failover means if this link goes down, the traffic will be immediately rerouted to the other available links, so you will keep the connection. And the beauty of this is that our time to commute is so low, it is under 200 milliseconds, that most applications won't even notice, so you won't lose the session. This is a unique feature that is called session persistence. And the way this works, and I'm going to show this in an animation that we have. Let me see, we have this available. Okay. Going to navigate to the. Okay, so hopefully you will see the animation here. This is depicting what happens during a typical voice over IP call. Why am I showing voice over IP? Because voice over IP is one of the typical ways to show something that is based on a session, a protocol that is based on a session. The name says it's all. Voice uses SIP protocol, which stands for Session Initiated Protocol. So you can see a call going through one of the links on the left on FatPipe, and on the right it could be any other SD-WAN provider. So the link just went down. What happens is that automatically in under 200 milliseconds the traffic is rerouted, and it's so fast that there's no disconnection. The call goes on. And in other cases, it doesn't happen like that. So how is this relevant for the question of SAS? Again, most SAS depend on sessions, so you have to open a session to work with your software provider, like the graphic that I was trying to do here. So in this case, let's say that you have on the LAN one of your users. This user is connected to here, and it has an open session. Many SD-WAN solutions, if you lose the connection, you lose the session, meaning that your user will have to re-log in. In our solution, in most cases, you don't lose the session. We have what is called session persistence, which is key. So our solution, it's a very good way to enhance the reliability and the performance of any SAS software as a service that you may be using. Okay, let's go to the next question. What will be the time period for implementation looking at this situation now? Great question. We have seen a bit of delay and over our traditional time, but let's start with this. Deploying SD-WAN solution, as I mentioned, because of the CTP, the zero-touch provisioning, and the fact that the hardware is usually available already in stock in the US, the deployment time is super fast. And we measure the deployment time usually in terms of weeks. In our experience, it takes more for the client to be ready to receive the solution and all the do the proper surveys and the design and everything, than actually what is needed on our side as a provider, because the hardware we have it in stock, it's easy to ship. But yes, to paint a complete picture, we are having some issues with the providers or the contractors that we use in some areas, because we use smart hands to do some remote work, and there could be a delay in that sense. But it could be a matter of a couple of extra days, nothing too serious. So in general terms, generally speaking, obviously this will be very different from city to city and state to state. And also, if we are talking about multi-country solution, if you were to install this in some countries in Latin America or some countries in Europe, obviously due to the situation in those countries, especially to clear customs, there could be a more significant delay, like up to a couple of weeks. We have been seeing that in a couple of countries. I'm not going to mention names, but there are countries that are being hit harder with the COVID-19 crisis, and because of that, obviously there are issues with customs not operating 100% of their capacity. Next question says, if Convergia does the link aggregation for 2 active links per site, what is the minimum number of CPEs? CPEs stands for customer premise equipment, usually meaning the routers of any active equipment that sits on the at the office at the location of the client. So in this case, the answer, it depends, but for 2 active links, with just one CPE, with one SD-WAN device, we can have a client connected to 2 or more links and have all of them active. The minimum device that we carry, the minimum hardware that we'll sell, it has 4 ports. 1 is for the LAN, and 3 are available for 1 connection. So to answer this question, we can aggregate up to 3 links and have them all in active with just one CPE, one appliance. And obviously, in that case, you are not connecting to another location. You are just aggregating the bandwidth. But if you want to connect to other locations, You can have as many CPs that you want. You can build a network of 2 SD-WAN locations or hundreds of locations. It doesn't matter. It's actually exactly the same. One of my clients has started inquiring about SD-WAN, but their IT department was worried about having a central repository of VPN connectivity, adding an external exposure to the environment. How secure is the orchestrator, and how can we guarantee that the orchestrator is 100% secure? Okay, this is a very interesting question. Again, it will take a while to explain it in its totality, but I will try to get to the most important part. And for that, I'm going to use the SD-WAN flavors. Okay, during the webinar, I mentioned that there are 3 flavors, the 100% on-premise, the 100% on cloud, and one that is called middle mile optimization that is kind of a hybrid. Our solution it's based on 100% on-premise, and during the webinar, I explained why, and I answered one question regarding this. And one of the key advantages of this is that, as you can see, is there is no single point of failure. So this solution, our solution, can operate even if you don't have an orchestrator. So there's no actual need for an orchestrator. Obviously, it's ideal to have an orchestrator, yes, no question about that. But if you have an orchestrator, that orchestrator can run, let's say that I have it here. So the orchestrator can run in any of the locations. And I'm going to okay. Sorry about that. I'm having issues with the drawing on top of the PowerPoint. So, but to answer the question, is in our case that we are not offering at this time the on-cloud solution, there is no point that will concentrate the VPN traffic, or there will be a choke point or a single point of failure or a point of aggregation of all the traffic and going through the cloud. It's like, in our case, we do a full mesh, meaning that the traffic goes from location A of the client directly to location B, passing only the ISP. So it doesn't go through Convergia, it doesn't go through the manufacturer path pipe, it doesn't need to go to any data center. It communicate directly from point A to point B. The VPNs and the tunnels are done in that way. So it's a full mesh network by default, and it connects every location to every other location. So in that sense, there's no concern about an orchestrator going down or being exposed and having posing a problem. Nevertheless, we can, and we do have, and we offer the orchestration, a full orchestration service. But the advantage of this is that the orchestration is different to other solutions. It doesn't have to sit on a data center. It's not proprietary to Convergia or to the provider. So the customer can host their own orchestrator. In this case, let's say that point A here in the graphic is the headquarters of the main data center of the client. So in that case, they can decide to have the orchestrator located here. That's fine, but they can have high availability, or they can have as many copies of the orchestrator as they need. On top of that, the second part of the question was, how secure is the orchestrator? The orchestrator is very, very secure. For what reason? Because, for starters, it's not a single or separate solution of software that's sitting on a different hardware. This is the orchestrator is a native application that runs on top of any of the appliances that a customer can have. So by default, because what I just said, the application of the orchestrator is sitting on one of the SD-WAN appliances, it's already by default protected by all the security layers of the that apply to all of the data that the SD-WAN protects. So you have the protection of the firewall, you have the protection of the inbound, outbound policies, you have the protection of the IDS, IPS, and so on. So immediately and by default, the orchestrator is fully protected. Okay. Let's see the next question. Is this expensive? That's a very hard question to answer, because expensive as compared to what? But let me say this. We have a couple of things, very good things going on for this kind of solution. First of all, this is something that we offer as an MSP, so you don't have to buy the hardware. There's no need to buy the hardware or to suffer from hardware end of life or hardware obsolescence. So no, that's an advantage. The second part is the license are very customizable and very dynamic, meaning that you pay only for what you really use. Let's assume that you have a scenario in which one of your locations has many links, that the total sum of the links will be 1 gigabit of traffic. But you are sure that you're never going to use more than half of that, so that will be 500 megabits of traffic. So you don't, even if you have a full gigabit of traffic available, but you're not using more than 500 megs, then we can license the device just for 500 megs, so you will be saving money. So it's, and let me finish with this. And if we compare apples to apples, meaning that if you compare any full SD-WAN solution, and for my take on what is a full SD-WAN solution, please look at the initial part of the webinar. If we compare a full SD-WAN solution with any brand out there, we are very competitive, especially when we are talking about networks of 20 or more nodes. We are highly competitive, so it's not really that expensive. And also very important to mention regarding this, in almost every case, the SD-WAN will pay for itself. How come? Because as I explained during SD-WAN the webinar, you will have cost reductions by the means of being able to move from expensive links or legacy networks like MPLS to more easy and less expensive solution, like, for example, a full mesh VPN managed by the SD-WAN. So how much can you save? In cases of MPLS, is between 40 to 70%. So that should give you an idea that actually, instead of being an extra cost, in most cases, SD-WAN will pay for itself, and furthermore, it will enable any company to save money. Okay, I think that was the last one. Yeah. So hopefully with that, we expanded the reach of the webinar, and we decided to do this after, because as I said, we received some very interesting questions via email, and also some of the questions that were raised during the webinar that we didn't have that time at that moment when we were live. So I was glad that I was able to address them. Thank you, everybody.